Okay, this is a little video to show you how to put together mask number 2. This is how it looks when it's done. It's different from the first mask. This fits right over your nose, so kind of different. But again, and it's a little bit more sewing, so it might take you a little bit longer than if you did mask number 1. But still, it's fairly easy, so you should be able to do it, no problem. Here's the pattern. There's a pattern piece A, and that is the outside of the mask. Pattern piece B is the lining of the mask. So you need to cut 2 pieces of A and 2 pieces of B. Now, you need to, before you start cutting, make sure you check the scale that's printed on here. It's got a little 2-inch scale, and take your, measuring tape or whatever, and make sure that it matches up your 2 inches. If it's a teeny bit off, it's not a big deal. But if it's way off, then your mask is not going to fit. So cut out the 2 pieces. Here's for the outside. Fold right sides together. I'm just using a little scrap. You'll have a ton of fabric. Pin it. Here's your lining, and I'm going to use 2 different colors just so you can see what I'm doing when the thing goes together. And cut. So fold this in half, cut 2, fold this in half, and cut. Okay? Now after you cut, there are, on pattern A, there are some lines that you're going to need to refer to later, so you need to mark those. And normally when we mark a pattern, we mark on the inside so it doesn't show. But you will see later why on this pattern we need to leave our markings on the outside. Now, if you cut yours out like this, with the right sides folded together, once you cut it, when you open it up, the right sides are here. There's a lot of different ways to do marking. I like tracing paper. Take 2 pieces of tracing paper, one like that, so you're going to get the mark on that fabric down there. One like this, so it's going to mark here. And then you just take your little tracing wheel and you just go over the line like that. And these are the 3 lines you need to do. That angled line, this line, there's actually 4, I lied. This angle line, and then you need to do this line too. Okay, so that's all you need to do. And take out your tracing paper. And the lines are kind of faint on the lower one, so then if you want, you can take a marker and, mark them so you can see it a little better. Now, this isn't rocket science. Don't worry if you're off a little bit. This is just to give you a little bit of a guide for later on, and you'll see what we're going to use these for. Okay, so before you unpin A, make sure you mark the lines, those lines on the right side of the fabric. Okay, then you can go ahead and unpin your pieces. Gonna look like this. And we're gonna sew this seam, and we're gonna sew this seam on the outside and the lining. So let's go to the sewing machine. All right, we're ready to start sewing. We want to do a 1/4 inch seam, and on my machine that's about right there for my presser foot, 1/4 inch right here. Back it up a little bit, and just sew right around this seam. 1/4 inch seam as close as you can, not rocket science. Okay, let's do the lining while we're at it. I have a bad habit of sewing over my pins. Every once in a while I pay the price for it. Okay, now I'm going to show you the hardest part of this whole construction, and that is, well, first of all, these seams, you're going to take your scissors and just clip about every 1/2 inch. Just make sure that you don't cut the thread. So just little clips like that. Okay, let's do this one too. If you have a nice sharp pair of scissors, this is pretty easy to do. Little clips like that. Now, this is going to be the hardest thing. We're going to top stitch this seam. Now, what you're going to want to do is open this up and pull the seam allowance so everything is going to your right-hand side. Okay? See how all of that is laying over to the right-hand side? You're going to stitch right along the seam line. And what you're doing is actually you're going to stitching down all of that extra seam allowance that's underneath there. So let me show you. And as you do this, go slowly and just pull the fabric apart like this, and it'll work just great for you. This takes a little skill, but it's a great skill to learn. And see how I'm stitching just kind of close to the fold there, but I'm tacking down all of the seam allowance underneath. And you got to kind of pull it apart as you go, because you're stretching out a curve. Now, see how that just makes that seam look so beautiful just from the top stitching. Okay, let's do it on this one. Push everything to the right, put it in, stretch it as you go, stretch it apart, pull it apart. Try as close as you can to stay close to that fold so you catch all the fabric underneath there. And you'll be able to tell if you're catching the fabric or not. There, isn't that lovely? Okay. Okay, we need to do some pressing now. Here's your two pieces, and we're getting ready to take care of these lines here. So let me pin these in place, and I'll show you what you need to do. The next instructions say on the lining you're supposed to pin in wrong sides together 1/2 inch, so it looks like this. So here's the outside, just turn 1/2 inch and pin it like that. This one we're going to do these 3 dashed lines. I've already done this one, but let me show you this one. So fold this little dash line up here like this, right on that line as close as you can. And find this one and pin it like this. And then find the end line like that and pin it over like that. Again, if you're not right on the line, doesn't matter. Okay, we're getting ready to take these to the sewing machine, but it really is going to help you if you press those as well. Okay, so that's what we're going to do here. Give it a good press. Keep that in place. Press this one down. And we're going to press the lining one too that we just pinned. Lining and 1/2 inch on the inside of the lining. Okay, let's go back to the sewing machine. So I forgot to mention, this is step 2, these stitching down these pieces here. So we're in the middle of step 2. So we're back at the machine, and we're just going to stitch these little folded lines fairly close to the fold. Basically just securing these in these little flaps in place. Okay, so there's the one side, and do the other side exactly the same way. So it looks like that. And then this one, you're going to just stitch down the edge. Doesn't really matter. Fairly close to the raw edge, I would say. About like that. Okay, so do the other 2 edges, and then we'll come back and do the next thing. Okay, so you've stitched down the edges. Now turn it to the outside and find this line right here. Fold on that line and take it to your machine and stitch it down. This is going to be the pocket for the elastic. Do that on the other side as well. Okay, we're on to step 3. And the instructions say to lay the inner layer over the outer layer with the right sides touching. So that's what we've done here. And just a little interesting thing, you see where you've done your top stitching here. Because of the way we did it, the top stitchings are on opposite sides. So that means it kind of reduces the bulk there. So you can actually line up the folds right there, and you will be right where you need to be. So just pin these two pieces together all the way along the top edge and the bottom edge, and then we're going to sew those. Quarter-inch seam. So all the way across. Do the top edge the same way. Okay, so we've stitched all the way across the top here, start and stop, and we've stitched all the way across the bottom, and now we just turn it inside out. Okay, so we've turned it inside out, and then it says you're supposed to top stitch real close to the edge to keep things in place during laundering. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. You know, get that seam as flat as you can. Maybe you want to go to the ironing board and press it, and then just top stitch real close to the edge here. So I'll do that. Okay, so we've done our top stitching here along the top edge and along the bottom edge just to hold everything in place. Now we're going to run the elastic through, so you have a 20-inch piece of elastic, and just find those little holes in the end. And start at the top, come out the bottom. Now we're making actually a big loop of elastic, so then you come out the bottom and you go in the bottom on the other side. Like that. Come out. And then you just tie a knot in the elastic. And this is cool, I think, because it makes it super adjustable for the wearer. The ones that fasten behind your ears, those are set and sewn in, but this one where it's just a knot in this big loop, they can make it as big or as small as they want. So just knot that elastic, and then it just loops around your head like this. Okay, we have one last thing to do. Okay, I'm ready to show you step 4, and then we're done. We're going to put a little nose wire in here. So what you want to do is take a quick measurement and get about 2 inches from the center seam on both sides. Just make a little mark there. And then you're going to stitch a 1/4 inch. We want to make a little tunnel. So you're going to stitch a 1/4 inch from this other stitching line here. All right, we're just going to make a little tunnel for that wire to go through. So just back up, go forward, and just give yourself, make sure there's a 1/4 inch from this line to this line, or about a 1/4, enough to run a little piece of wire through, like this. Okay, and you get to the other mark, back stitch. Okay, so it should look like this. And then you can come in from the side here and run your wire in. And once you've got the wire in there, just sew right across the ends and seal it up, and the wire will be there, and you are done.